Hi Sasha, Cousin Scott here, and welcome to the first in, hopefully, many videos about how to use your Juki HZL-29Z sewing machine. In this video, I'd like to go over the different parts of the machine, as well as what sandwiches you can safely eat while using it. So let's get started. If it's not completely plain to see, this is the front of the sewing machine. You will spend most of your time looking at this view. If you try to use the sewing machine from the back, it ain't gonna work, baby. Just saying. On the front, top right side of the machine, you'll see the stitch selector knob. This allows you to choose the type of stitch the sewing machine will put into the fabric. As you see in the picture, it's set on number 3. This is the setting you'll use most of the time because it will put the stitches in the fabric with the needle directly in the center of the foot, which you'll see in a moment. If you move the selector knob to number 1, the needle will be moved to the left a little bit. This will allow you to sew closer to the left side of the fabric. This is good if you want to sew fabric, say, close to a zipper. We'll talk more about that in a later video. If you move the selector knob to number 2, you'll get a zigzag stitch. Not only is this stitch decorative, but you can use it to prevent fabric edges from fraying. We'll also talk more about this in a later video. Take note that between number 1 and number 2, there is a squiggle. Moving the selector knob anywhere over the squiggle and you'll still get a zigzag stitch, but it will be less wide than when the selector knob is set to number 2. Now, the selector knobs numbers 4 through 11 are different decorative stitches. They usually aren't used, but you can play with them if you want. Finally, the remaining 3 selector knob positions are used when creating a buttonhole. We'll talk more about this in a later video. On the front left side of the machine, you'll see a knob with a plus sign, a minus sign, and a wheel with numbers. This allows you to change the thread tension. For the most part though, you should leave this set to number 5, as shown by the square box around the number 5. On the front bottom right side of the machine, you'll see the reverse button. This will force the fabric to go backwards, allowing you to lock the stitches in place. This way, your clothes won't fall apart when out in public. Very embarrassing. Also, despite what the reverse button looks like, please do not put a Kit Kat bar on there. Just saying. On the far right side of the machine, you'll see 2 knobs. The first knob shown allows you to select the stitch length. When set to a higher number, the stitches will be very long. When set to a lower number, the stitches will be short. Set the stitch length to a number you think looks nice. On the same side as the stitch length knob, you'll find a large knob called the hand wheel. This knob allows you to move the needle up and down without using the foot controller. We'll talk about the foot controller in just a moment. If it's difficult to pull the thread out of the machine, moving this knob a little bit back and forth can actually help. The most important switch on the same side as the 2 knobs is the on-off button. Press this button to 1 to turn on the machine. Press this button to 0 to turn off the machine. When you're done using the machine, don't forget to turn it off and put the cover back on the machine. This prevents dust, dirt, cookie crumbs, and small sandwiches from getting on the machine. On the bottom left of the machine, you'll see the most important part, the bit where you put the fabric and sew. This is made up of the presser foot, which is lowered into position using the presser foot lever, the needle, and the bobbin case. The big white handle is used to automatically thread the needle with thread rather than doing it completely by hand. In the same area, you'll find a small accessory box which holds a variety of tools and other things. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. Also, you can remove this drawer completely by pulling it to the left. This will allow you to hem pants and cuffs easily, and we'll see more about that in a later video. And here are all the accessories found in the accessory box. You have extra sewing machine needles, 3 empty bobbins, the buttonhole foot, a brush to clean out the bobbin case and other things, and 2 screwdrivers to help you replace an old or broken needle. Note that the brush also contains a small seam ripper. Just pull it apart and it will be exposed. Finally, the remaining pieces are used to hold the thread spool onto the machine. We'll see that in a little bit. On the floor, you'll find the foot controller. This allows you to control the speed of the sewing machine. Push down a lot and the machine sews faster. Push down a little and the machine sews slower. When pushing down the foot controller, if the machine hesitates to move, don't forget that you can use your right hand to turn the hand wheel. This will get the machine to go zoom, zoom, zoom. It looks like someone's kitchen floor needs to be cleaned. On the top of the machine, on the right, you'll see a place to wind a bobbin with thread. We'll see how to do this in just a moment. Next to it, in the back, is where you put your spool of thread. We'll see more about that in just a moment too. On the left side, there's a place to load the sewing machine with thread, and we'll see how to do this in just a moment. And we're back to the beginning again. Now that we know what all the parts are, we can show you how to load the machine and start sewing. Before we use the machine, we're going to have to put a spool of thread onto the machine. So take a spool of thread, place it onto the plastic spool pin, then place a small piece of red felt on the spool pin, followed by the plastic holder. The next thing we're going to do is wind a bobbin with thread. First, take the thread and place it between the two metal plates behind the back of the machine, and then wind it around the nut on the top of the machine once, as shown in the picture. Next, very carefully take the thread and put it in the small hole on the top of the bobbin. This may take a couple of tries, but you'll get it. Place the bobbin on the spool pin, pushing down hard, and then move the entire mechanism to the right. You should hear a click. Next, push down on the foot controller and wind the thread onto the bobbin until it's almost completely full. Move the mechanism to the left. You should again hear a click, and then pull the bobbin off of the spool pin. Carefully remove the thread from the nut as well as the two metal plates. Finally, cut the thread from the bobbin off of the thread spool. Next, remove the bobbin cover and place the bobbin, already loaded with thread, into the place where the bobbin goes, and make sure you follow the instructions on the left hand side. Remember, the thread has to go between those two metal pieces, and then it goes all the way in the back. Finally, place the bobbin cover on top of the bobbin holder. Next, let's thread the machine. Pull the thread from the bobbin and make sure it goes between the two metal plates and then down the channel labeled number 2. After bringing the thread down channel number 2, go to the left and up channel number 3. After bringing the thread up the channel labeled number 3, bring it up and around to the left inside that metal hook, and then back down the channel labeled number 5. Now bring the thread down channel number 5 and all the way towards the back of the machine. You'll see a small hook right above the needle. You're going to need 2 hands, or 2 fingers in this case, in order to get that thread into that little hook. Now, in order to get the thread into the hole in the needle, you push down on that white piece all the way down, move it towards the back so that the prong is surrounding the needle, and then bring the thread to the left around and towards your right. Then, with your left finger, flick it, and it should get the thread into the actual needle hole. At this point, carefully pull the thread loop until the thread comes all the way out and you're left with just one strand of thread in the eye of the needle. Finally, bring the thread down and back through the slot in the foot all the way to the back of the machine along with the bobbin thread. Now, in order to sew fabric, lift the presser foot and place the fabric underneath the presser foot and then push the presser foot down. Then carefully depress the foot pedal until the machine starts to sew. Again, if it kind of hesitates a little bit, then what you should do is take your right hand and try to move that little knob on the right hand side of the machine. If you want to sew around a corner, make sure that the needle remains in the fabric. Lift the presser foot, twist the fabric around, push the presser foot back down, and continue sewing. Finally, when you're done sewing, make sure the needle is no longer in the fabric, lift the presser foot, pull out the fabric carefully and slowly, and then make sure to cut the threads.